In Atlanta tonight, police looking for the man who shot and killed a 31-year-old woman during an argument over a bowling ball.
You know, often police talk about conflict resolution. That did not happen here at Metro Fun Center last night. Instead, a young woman lost her life to gun violence.
This is truly an atrocity.
Journalist George Chidi and Fox 5 contributor believes the shooting and killing of 31-year-old Lakevia Jackson is just the start to more violence. The mother shares a son with popular rapper Young Thug.
She was down with it. She was in and out that door with him. She was the main reason why all this started.
What should have been a fun and exciting birthday party turned into a murder investigation after an argument between two strangers suddenly turned deadly. But it's what the argument was over that is the most shocking and senseless thing of all. Lakevia Jackson was a 31-year-old woman in the prime of her life. Much like many other people her age, she was happy with the life she had. Lakevia had friends, family, and all of the creature comforts that anyone could ever ask for. She was just an ordinary woman. But on the other hand, there was something pretty unique about Lakevia too. Lakevia had also had a child with the famous rapper Young Thug. As such, she had that connection to someone who was relatively rich and well-known, and could afford a few of the finer things in life. It certainly made raising her child that little bit more comfortable. There can be no doubt that Lakevia loved her son, but it's also very true that money can buy you happiness. Despite what some people may say, the people in her life were extremely important to her, especially her friends. With one of Lakevia's friends' birthdays coming up, a small group of the friends decided that they wanted to go out and celebrate the occasion. They chose to keep things relatively low-key yet fun, and selected a local bowling alley as the place that they would go. There they could bowl, talk, drink, catch up, and generally have a good time. But it was on the night of March 17, 2022, what should have been a fun evening at the Metro Fun Center, a popular bowling alley in Atlanta, turned into a nightmare. Once at the bowling alley, Lakevia and the friends got down to the business of having fun in celebration of a birthday. Things were all going smoothly until Lakevia realized that she needed a slightly smaller bowling ball, and so she walked over to another lane to select one that was better for her. Once there, she picked up a ball to see if it was better. However, a man and woman came across, shouting at her that it was his ball and that she needed to put it down.
Atlanta police say at some point she got into an argument with someone over a bowling ball.
Lakevia argued back, though, telling the man that the bowling balls were for everyone to use. The argument became quite heated over something so simple, possibly because it was getting late, and both people had consumed a few alcoholic drinks before the altercation. As tensions rose, the argument between Lakevia's group and another party became increasingly heated. Witnesses later described the scene as chaotic, with harsh words exchanged and tempers flaring. Eventually, though, the man stormed off, and Lakevia went back with the ball and finished off her game before saying her goodbyes to everyone and gathering her things to go home. It had been a genuinely fun evening, and despite the pointless argument with the man, Lakevia had enjoyed catching up with her friends, relaxing, and celebrating her friend's birthday. But what Lakevia didn't know was that the altercation over the bowling ball was not over yet, and that things were soon going to take a deadly turn. As far as Lakevia was concerned, the altercation about the bowling ball was done and dusted, and she had pretty much put it to the back of her mind. But as she walked out into the parking lot, things flared back up in the most horrific of fashions. It was there on that cold March evening that the situation reached a deadly climax. A person, reportedly involved in the earlier dispute, started walking towards Lakevia with a cold look in their eye. While they did not say a single word, it was clear that they were still angry about what had happened inside the bowling alley. But rather than trying to talk things through and reach a peaceful solution, the person reached back and pulled out a gun that had been concealed in the back of their pants. Lakevia had no time to react as the person raised the weapon, took aim, and fired multiple shots. It all happened in a terrifying split second. Lakevia was struck and collapsed to the ground, blood gushing from her many wounds. Before she passed away, she reached for her phone and dialed a number. Her mother answered cheerily, hoping to hear about her daughter's fun night out. But what she actually heard were her daughter's final words.
I couldn't understand what she was saying, and then all I heard was she's not breathing. And then I said, who? And she said, Lakevia, and I lost it.
Emergency services were called to the scene, but it was too late. Lakevia Jackson was pronounced dead at the scene, leaving her family and friends devastated. The senselessness of the crime was shocking. A young mother lost her life over something as inconsequential as a bowling ball, dying on a day that she was supposed to celebrating her friend's birth. But there were some very big and serious questions that needed answering. Firstly, why had the argument gotten so serious? And what had driven the shooter to actually kill Lakivia? And then who was the actual person that pulled the trigger? They fled the scene as soon as they shot her, and were at large, something which left the police extremely concerned. If the person could snap and kill over something as silly as a bowling ball, then the chances are that they may do it again. One of the most harrowing things about the situation was that Lakivia's death meant that her son would grow up without a mother during one of the most important and formative moments of his life.
Lakivia Jackson has a teen son with rapper Young Thug. We're told by the grandmother the son is with the father tonight.
Law enforcement quickly launched an investigation into Lakivia's murder. Luckily, the incident was caught on security cameras, and the authorities were able to delve into that to try to identify the suspect.
Atlanta police hope surveillance video will find the person who shot and killed a 31-year-old mother at a bowling alley.
The security footage wasn't perfect quality, and the footage had to be analyzed to help the authorities identify the person who shot the gun. It was something that would take time.
Right now, investigators are combing through surveillance video. APD Commander Ralph Woolfolk says several witnesses are also cooperating.
All the while, police carried on pleading for the person to give themselves up.
I just felt like if anybody knew that they were out there waiting on me for 20 minutes, something could have been done.
And Atlanta police say they did detain one person but have not named them as a suspect at this point. If you know anything in this case, come forward. You can remain anonymous.
We will find the person that's responsible. You know who you are. Go ahead and turn yourself in. We assure you that we will bring you into custody.
As for the suspected gunman, APD not releasing that information, but again, they say they are confident this investigation will not drag on.
But there was one additional twist that no one saw coming. Police started to theorize that the shooting may have been gang-related. There were several prominent gangs in the Atlanta area, and there was often bad blood between them, with meetings often ending in violence and bloodshed. So had Lakivia become involved in some kind of gang?
I'm really concerned that this is going to be a catalyst for even larger acts of reprisal.
Journalist George Chidi and Fox 5 contributor believes the shooting and killing of 31-year-old Lakivia Jackson is just the start to more violence. The mother shares a son with popular rapper Young Thug. Atlanta police say the shooting was a result of some sort of argument over a bowling ball at the Metro Fun Center on Metropolitan Parkway.
But while Lakivia might not have been part of any gang, Young Thug, the father of her baby, was known to be involved in that world. This led authorities to wonder if this was a way of punishing the rapper and getting to him without physically getting him.
Chidi believes Jackson was used as a target, and this all stems from a long-running war with rival gangs YFN and YSN.
I think somebody was going after Young Thug any way they could get to him.
Atlanta police would not comment on if gang retaliation played a part in the shooting, but say they are continuing their investigation.
Look, I love rap music, and I'm not here to beat up on the music. I'm here to say that the music cannot be allowed to be an excuse for violence.
Chidi says as homicide numbers rise, it's going to take a collaborative effort with police, city leaders, and the community.
Finally, though, the analysis from the security footage came back, and police were able to identify their primary suspect. But when they saw the person who actually murdered Lakivia, they were shocked and angered, yet somewhat unsurprised. The individual was a person who was known to have a history of violence and had been arrested many times before. But while they were known to police, the truth was that they had no idea where they were. The person moved around from place to place, avoiding the police like the plague, all while continuing with their criminal behavior. And while violence was one thing, to actually kill someone was on an entirely different level of violence, and the police needed to stop them once and for all. After several days of hunting, one arrest was made, though police didn't say much about them. It was clear that they had been part of the argument with Lakivia, and police suspected he might have been the one to have pulled the trigger and killed her. The person, A man later named as Joshua Fleetwood was arrested and taken into custody for their part in the altercation that led up to the murder.
This too was a relentless investigation in which we worked through the night and into the next day, and trying to gather all the facts and circumstances regarding the investigation. And we are happy today to announce that our elite fugitive team was able to pick up Mr. Joshua Fleetwood.
But that was not the end of the story, and there were still plenty more twists to come.
Developing tonight, a convicted felon with 16 previous arrests sits in jail right now, accused of shooting and killing a mother outside of an Atlanta bowling alley.
As the case moved through the courts, LaKavia's family and friends struggled to come to terms with their loss. The case garnered significant media attention, not just because of its senselessness, but because it highlighted the growing issue of gun violence in America. The idea that a disagreement over something so minor could lead to murder was hard for many to comprehend.
They got in an argument over a bowling ball. They were on adjacent lanes in which the time they were bowling. And that argument escalated. At no point was there any weapons inside of the location. At no point did anyone come there with the intentions of hurting anyone or firing upon anyone. This was not a drive-by.
Then, of course, there was the fact that LaKavia was the mother of rapper Young Thug's baby. This was another thing that shone a lot of light on the case. But one day, the police had a breakthrough in the case.
Developing now, a second person under arrest after a mother was shot and killed outside an Atlanta bowling alley.
That's right. And LaKavia Jackson's family told me this afternoon that they had no idea that a second person had been arrested in her death until 11 Alive broke the news to them. They say that, now they feel like justice is finally being served.
After a manhunt that lasted several days, the suspect, an individual known to have a history of violence, was arrested and charged with murder. The suspect, later identified as Imani Spears, was charged with felony murder, aggravated assault, and possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony.
Within a matter of days, Atlanta police arrested Joshua Fleetwood. But it was only just yesterday that a second suspect, Imani Spears, was taken into custody.
She had a criminal record that included previous charges for violence, which only added to the horror of this senseless killing.
We can't sleep. All we see is that same scene of my sister laying there, breathless. They laughed.
She laughed.
They laughed at us when they drove off in the car still shooting. They laughed while my sister was on that ground.
She was not only a felon, but also a fugitive known to be associated with gangs in the Atlanta area.
She was down with it. She was in and out that door with him. She was the main reason why all this started.
I knew that it was more than one person involved. So I just wanted justice any way they can get it.
Both Imani Spears and Joshua Fleetwood ended up facing charges of murder, but it was the sheer amount of crimes that Joshua had previously committed that shocked everyone.
Joshua Fleetwood waived his first appearance today, but it wouldn't be the first time he went before a judge. When I asked the Records Department for the court documents related to his previous arrests, they told me there were too many documents to send by email. Atlanta police say he's gone through the court system 16 times before this arrest.
The pieces of the puzzle started to fall into place. Joshua and Imani had been an item and out on a date at the Metro Fun Center at the same time as LaKavia and her friends. LaKavia and Imani had ended up getting into a fight over the bowling ball, but rather than forgetting about it and moving on as LaKavia did, Imani and Joshua plotted their revenge, waiting in the parking lot and then shooting her when she was leaving the building around 20 minutes later. People started asking questions as to why such violent people as Imani and Joshua were even allowed to be out of prison and free, considering their multitude of crimes and convictions. If the police had them both in custody, then LaKavia would still be alive today. But when the case finally went to trial, there came the most shocking twist of all, one that left LaKavia's family reeling. You see, despite facing charges of murder, both Joshua Fleetwood and Imani Spears walked free from court, with the case being dismissed. According to court documents, the charges against Spears and Fleetwood were dismissed in November by Fulton County Superior Court Judge Kimberly E. Esmond Adams after they filed a motion claiming immunity, stating they were legally justified in the shooting. Adams ruled in their favor based on witness testimony, photographic evidence, and video evidence showing Jackson was the first person to fire a weapon. Jackson reportedly fired into the air first, and then fired at the defendants who were running towards their vehicle. As well as the security camera footage capturing the moment of LaKavia's death, It also caught her pulling out a gun of her own and shooting into the air before shooting at Imani and Joshua. The two murder suspects reacted by trying to run and then pulling out their own weapon to fire back at Lakivia. And while Lakivia's bullets had missed, the returning fire didn't. The lawyers of the defendants argued that they were justified in their shooting, as Lakivia shot first, and they were merely protecting themselves. Judge Kimberly E. Esmond Adams of the Fulton County Superior Court was in agreement, and the case was thrown out. It was a controversial outcome to the case, but a legally fair one. Of course, nothing would ever bring Lakivia back. No amount of justice or punishment. She was gone, leaving behind her family and friends, and not least of all a son who desperately needed her more than anyone else in the world. Her death was senseless, and over something ridiculously simple and petty. Her mother summed up the grief the best.
As for Lakivia's mom, pain and grief now fills the void left behind by her daughter's senseless death.
Call me just to hear my voice. I'm gonna miss that.
Of course, with blame on both sides, this case is not as clear-cut as people initially thought it would be. So now it's over to you. What did you think of this tragic story? Who do you think shot and killed Lakivia? Was it simply a disagreement over the bowling ball, or was there more to it than meets the eye? Also, how do you feel about the charges being dropped? Be sure to leave your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. Please give this video a like and a subscribe. And as always, thanks for watching.